All right, Cris, how remarkable was Foles' run? You have a backup quarterback who gets thrown in after the guy everyone perceives to be the MVP this season is out with injury, and you're like, hey, can you just not lose a game? And then he takes them all the way to the Super Bowl and walks away with MVP honors.
Yeah, it's remarkable, and nobody saw this coming. When Carson Wentz got hurt in that Rams game, I dismissed the Eagles as contenders, and they've done nothing but prove everybody wrong, including us here at this table. You know, when you start looking at how Nick Foles approached the game, the mental aspect of it. He talked a little bit about it in the post-game press conference. He likened it to his high school basketball career, and he said he didn't pay attention to the scoreboard or the clock. He just went out there and he played, and he lived in the moment. And so many times players get caught up in, okay, this is the Super Bowl. They might think about the play before. They might think about the play that's coming up next. They don't think about the play that they're in right now and executing it at the highest level. And I think Nick Foles did a great job of living in the moment, and that keeps the game from getting too big for you. And so Doug Peterson expressed a lot of confidence in his quarterback. I mean, when you have 43 dropbacks for Nick Foles out of your 71 offensive plays, that's telling your quarterback, go win me the game. And he absolutely did it. And now you can put him in the conversation with Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers and Drew Brees, because those guys are Super Bowl champions, but those guys also had consecutive playoff games with 350 yards passing, back-to-back games. And that's what we're saying right now. He's in that conversation of the four quarterbacks that have done it in the league's history. Yeah. So, I mean, when you start talking about what he actually did during this playoff run, it wasn't as if Nick Foles was some game manager. Nick Foles went out there and won the Super Bowl for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, there's a couple things in watching the highlight tapes. Watch the ball placement. Watch the variety of the throws. Nick Foles got a fastball. Now, he's an NFL quarterback, all right? But let's not forget, man, this is one of the best rosters in the NFC, if not the best roster in the NFC. Even though their quarterback was hurt and he might have been the MVP, but this was still a great roster. Nick Foles they did not carry Nick Foles in this game. They might have carried him to this game, but in this game, man, he was throwing some dimes. If you look at the ability to be able to throw tight end, running backs, wide receivers, 3 different wide receivers at different points making impacts on the game. Throwing the ball deep outside, throwing the ball on the sideline, throwing the middle of the field, the Nelson Aguilar, when he split those defenders, that lets you know that the quarterback is playing with a lot of confidence. So then it goes to game planning. And that's where I believe Frank Wright and Doug Peterson, they set themselves apart because what they did for Nick Foles. Nick, you and I were talking about, when I coach wide receivers, I coach them how I would like to get coached, or how my kids as wide receivers, how they've told me, hey, coach, you know, we kind of like things this way. And their ability to get Nick to play with confidence. Nick, you mentioned something.
It felt like, here's the thing about Frank Reich and Doug Peterson. Yeah, they were both quarterbacks in this league, but they were backup quarterbacks in this league.
Yeah, yes.
And so the idea, it felt to me, because CC tweeted after the game about Frank Reich, and I just got to thinking about it, because people know Frank Reich for one thing. He was the backup quarterback when the Bills came back from 30-plus down in the playoffs against the Oilers. But it makes you think, wonder if Peterson and Frank Reich coached Nick Foles the way they wish they had been coached when they got to play as backups.
Right, because when backups get to play,
it's just don't lose the game.
They choke them out. Hey, oh, we got a full game plan. Oh, here you go. What we running? We running right there. What's on the top? Right there for you.
And where they deserve a ton of credit for that is, you could have made the credible case. That's not what you should do. No. Not with this offensive line, this running game, this defense.
Right.
Home field set through the playoffs already. Let's just try to win without our quarterback hurting us, without our quarterback making mistakes. And by the way, with the way the defense played against Atlanta and then the way the defense played against Minnesota, that would have got him in the Super Bowl. They didn't need Nick Foles to be great in either one of those games. But if they had that game plan for the Super Bowl, they'd have got blown out yesterday.
Yes.
If Nick Foles couldn't match Tom Brady score for score, they'd have got blown out.
It's amazing how they changed and when the Atlanta game they almost lost.
Yep.
Julio Jones makes a Julio Jones catch, and we got a different story here. But the next week, early against Minnesota, man, they start throwing the ball and throwing it deep. Minnesota was surprised by the way they attacked them being a top defense for the last not only season, the last 3 seasons. And the way they played against New England. You're talking about 8 quarters of football by Nick Foles, I don't believe can happen unless Frank Wright and Doug, the head coach there, that they don't do a massage job on Nick's head because they changed their game plan, their ability to be aggressive, and knowing that Nick would embrace that and it would bring out the best in him.
And I thought they did a good job of in-game adjustments, too. We usually talk about Bill Belichick and the Patriots being the best at that, but I think Doug Peterson beat him at his own game because when you look at it, they targeted Alshon Jeffrey early in that game because Stephon Gilmore did not travel with him. And so when the Patriots made the adjustment to put Gilmore on Alshon Jeffrey, that's when they put Zach Ertz to work. And so on a lot of those run-pass option plays, we were accustomed to seeing the Eagles attack in between the numbers, but they went outside of the numbers this time. And I think they were taking advantage of Malcolm Butler not being in the lineup.
And some backup quarterbacks always have the mentality of, man, I'm a starter. I just haven't gotten the opportunity.
Right.
And I don't think that's been Nick Foles. Nick Foles almost retired. Nick Foles had a 27-touchdown, 2-interception season, and 2 years after that was like, you know what, football's not for me anymore. So he needed a coach and a coaching staff to say, oh, no, we believe that you can do it.
But he also needed a team to feel that way. You interviewed every guy on that team, and you know what you're supposed to say. Yeah, he's ready. He can do it. We believe in him. You genuinely believe that his offensive line believed in him, that his receivers believed in him, and they kept saying, hey, this guy's really good. And I know everyone, and then they finally just stopped. Okay, fine, we'll wear the underdog masks. We'll be underdogs. Watch what he can do.
It was a great job by Doug Peterson getting the whole team to believe it. Because I don't know if early on they did believe it. Yeah. And then eventually they did. I thought it was
because
great.
They had a handful, 2 or 3, I think 2 games they had where he had a very subpar performance until the championship game where he was lights out. And I think the coaches were like, you know what? If we're going all the way. I mean, let's just give you the entire play calling. All right. Cris, thank you so much.
See you,
thank you.
Great game. We had fun this season.
Appreciate it.
Coming up. Was Bill Belichick outcoached by Doug Peterson? That's next on First Things First. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.